The gift of my niece. Recently, I received a worthy gift from my niece during my recent visit to South. It was a Parker pen in a molded pack jostling with a Stepney refill. Its barbell and cap were in shiny steel and its clip was gold plated. It worked with a roller ballpoint technology and was fed by Parker Quink, promoted as ultra fine navigator as claimed in the blurb of the pack. I shrank before the copywriter's skill. Most of us always evaluate a gift by its price tag and not by its intrinsic or utility value. Habits die hard. Here, I was more curious to know its price since Parker fountain pens adored the coat pockets of tycoons and CEOs only in the olden days. Its cost was beyond the reach of common man in 1950s itself. On a scrutiny of the fine print on the pack, I found that the present gift cost rupees 400. I was shocked and about to drop the gift pack. My thoughts turned nostalgic and scanned my experiences with writing tools. In our days, in 1940s, in primary classes, only slates and brittle slate pencils were used by pupils. For the information of present day science based students, slate is a fine grained metamorphic rock that could easily split into smooth flat plates. These slate plates, cut to size, were framed with cheap wood with curved corners. Some frames were fortified with metal clips in all corners and cost a wee bit more. It was a shame to hold broken slates in those days. Poverty was so cruel in our times that some could not replace a broken slate but gingerly carried bigger chunks of the broken slates without frames. Breaking a slate invited reprimand from teachers and ill affording parents. Homework too was done on the slates, and the students carried them to schools with a jute string tied to the hole in the top middle of the slate frame. The cost of a slate was in annas and varied according to the size. Slate pencils were available for pieces or thumbidis. Colored slate pencils, partly blue and partly pink, were luxuries. Calculations were done in rupees, pies, dambidi, etc. Pencils were used in the middle classes. At some stage, compositions and vernacular translations were done compulsorily in pencil so that the teachers made corrections over them in ink. Many used stumps of pencils. Some used the barrel of the broken fountain pens to add length to the dwarfing pencils. Elders sharpened the pencils with pen knives or used blades. Once I was thrashed by my elder brother for misusing his newly purchased Gillette blade for sharpening my pencil. We were introduced to pen gradually in our middle classes. One pen for one person for some lifelong was the norm in those days. Cleansing the barrel, neck, tongue, and nib was a great ritual. Pen, ink bottle, mainly swan, camel, filler, and a piece of rag were inseparable companions. Even a drop of ink should not be wasted. Adults took care of the refilling of the fountain pens. Pens with brand names such as Parker, Montblanc, Schaeffer's, and Golden Platinum were revered and held high. My brother had a black bird with a mahogany colored ebonite body crowned with a 14-carat gold nib to complement his cremage button and collar pin. Pilot was a common brand among high school students. Earlier generations used quills before the advent of steel pen and fountain pen. Possibly the mathematical prodigy Srinivas Ramanujan worked out his mystic problems on scrap papers and on blank back of film notices with a steel pen dipped in ink. Earlier, ink was made out of decoction of Hartigi and Meyerblum that left indelible impressions. Lately, blue royal blue blue back, red and other colors ink came to rule. Swan, Iris, Twink were the popular brands in ink. Cheaper versions were made of coarse ink pills which clogged the fountain pens. Now it is a sea change in the market of stationers. Now we have cheap varieties of use and throw ballpoint pens, fine tipped pens, gel pens, sketch pens, highlighters, and pens with indelible fluorescent inks, whiteboard markers, etc. And every house has fistful, tumblerful, drawerful of pencils, ballpoint pens, and varieties of fancy erasers. But most of them do not write when picked up for emergent jotting. They have no fountains within them, not perennial. They dry up and get exhausted, adding to the non biodegradable wastes. To use an outdated idiom, I have slung more ink on the paper to write this article. First, I shuddered to open the pack of my niece's gift, the proud Parker pen. We, the tight-fisted oldies, would not spend on costly refills. Stationers can study the pulse of the buyers and will not recommend a Parker refill for us, but suggest a cheap use and throw one for our use to sign on dotted lines. A Parker also cannot be fastened to my shirt pocket since the threat of borrowing and not returning attitude looms large in public places. A ship anchored in harbor looks beautiful, but it is not meant for it. My Parker is not meant for symbolic worship on Saraswati Puja, and I never enjoyed the pleasure of writing in my student days with leaky pens, staining my shirt pockets and fingers, dotting my exercise books with diarrheal blobs. As a scribe, I wrote a lot with pens that were better than quills. Well, it may be a comb that I got after getting bald, but it is a gold plated tooth instead of a ceramic one, viewed in another angle. Thank you for listening.